It's something of significance that in the last couple months, or at least since the election of Donald Trump, much of the credibility that has been held by the U.S. politically has been on the decline. Now, this also comes at a time when China and Russia are really coming into their own and really being forces that can challenge the hegemony of the United States. Now, even the United States acknowledges that it's no longer the sole hegemonic power in the world. It's no longer a unipolar world since the end of the Soviet Union. And now other countries are coming up to challenge their power. Now, let's look at the situation in Palestine. Now, the foreign minister of Palestine said that if the United States is not willing to try to broker some kind of peace deal between Israel and Palestine, then perhaps that could take place in Russia. And those discussions could take place on Russian soil with Vladimir Putin or at least some other higher-ranking official in the Russian government to carry out that whole negotiation. And this is something that's very significant because the United States has always held a hegemonic position with regards to the whole debate of Israel and Palestine. But that's being challenged right now. Absolutely, we are ready for direct talks through a third party. Of course, Palestinian Foreign Minister Riyad al-Maliki said Tuesday, as quoted by RIA. We don't think a 15-minute meeting in Jerusalem would help us, the minister went on, noting that coming to Sochi or Moscow would be a good decision if Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is willing to. Now, of course, it's really obvious that the United States is always siding with Israel, and frankly couldn't really care whether or not Palestinians live or die, and frequently sell the means to make them die to Israel, and gives billions of dollars in aid to Israel so that it can destroy Palestinians and prop up its own mockery of democracy. So, I mean, really, what incentive is there for Palestinians to engage in peace talks with a country doing the moderating, which is trying to see them die? So now they want to switch it somewhere else. Since the United States basically has already even abandoned the pretext of wanting peace in Israel-Palestine by just unilaterally deciding that Jerusalem is now the capital of Israel, completely, just disregarding Al-Quds in general. So Palestine wants to go somewhere else, and they prefer to deal with the Russians. That would be the next logical power in that region to carry out, actual negotiations, because there is no negotiations with the United States. It's always something that just screws the Palestinians, and we've been seeing that for absolute decades. Now, it's not just this with Palestine. Look at what happened with the Olympics. Mike Pence went in there, and he thought he was just going to walk all over everybody and just do that whole teenage girl thing. Well, if you're going to talk to Kim Jong-un's sister, then you're not going to talk to me. And just froze out everybody. Even went in to be as disrespectful enough to refuse to stand for the host country's entrance in the Olympics. Well, what happened? When faced with that choice, either talk to Kim Jong-un's sister or talk to him, by that the United States, people chose to talk to Kim Jong-un's sister. But this is really important. The U.S. is getting rebuked at this point. People don't want to hear it. They want to get on with, a peaceful relations with the DPRK. So you have this whole Olympics thing set up as peaceful, cooperation in the spirit of unity and sportsmanship. And the DPRK comes in with that, agreeing to march under the unification flag with the South. And the United States just comes along barking at everybody, oh, this is just propaganda, this is meaningless. Well, the DPRK is holding up the actual spirit of what the Olympics is supposed to be about. So, I mean, this is a great public relations win for the DPRK, because they went along with the spirit of the Olympics, and the United States just kept blasting them, oh, we're going to put new sanctions on you, this is propaganda, etc. And now the U.S. just looks like a-holes. The whole world just looked at the way that the U.S. has behaved in the Olympics so far as just being unruly, cruel people. Why was any of that necessary? The U.S. didn't have to act that way. So, I mean, this is a big, huge win for the DPRK in this case. But this is all part of a bigger issue. The United States is losing face all across the world. Now, normally they've been able to use threat of military force to hold that position, or being that the U.S. dollar is the world's reserve currency, it can use that to manipulate other people into having to listen to them and force themselves into these kinds of positions. But the world's not even hearing it anymore. They're tired of it. They don't even want to deal with this anymore. And it's to the point now where the U.S. is threatening sanctions, threatening retaliation against China and South Korea for supposed dirty dealings inside what they call unfair trade practices, as if bombing a country for refusing to hand over your resources isn't a dirty trade tactic. But these are the people that they're relying on to try to rein in North Korea under U.S. desires. And they're just outright threatening them now. The U.S.'s totalitarian grip on the world is sliding away. So now they're having to resort to now more totalitarian means to try to regain that position of respect they once had. The world's opinion is turning against the United States, and frankly, it's a century or two behind. It should have been doing this a long time ago, at least several decades behind. But it's interesting that this comes as the United States acknowledges that it's no longer the sole power in the world. This comes as it recognizes that Islamic terrorism is no longer the quote-unquote biggest threat to the United States anymore, but the rising powers of China and Russia, geopolitical opponents, is now the biggest threat to national security. We're definitely looking at something very interesting here. We're looking at the decline of the United States as an empire. And frankly, that decline just can't come fast enough.
Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.